The morning sun came through the window of the Adekunle family's dining room. The light touched the neat table where everything was in its place, just like the family's life was supposed to be. Dr. Tunde Adekunle, the father, sat at the head of the table. He was a serious man, always dressed neatly, even when he didn't need to be. He was proud of his work as a doctor and had spent years building his clinics from nothing. Now, he wanted his eldest son to follow in his footsteps. Ayomide, the first son, sat straight across from him. His medical books were stacked beside his plate, the pages full of notes and diagrams. He had been studying medicine for 4 years and was working hard to become a doctor like his father. But the tired look on his face showed how much the work was wearing him down. "You have exams coming up, don't you?" Dr. Adekunle asked, cutting into the silence. "Yes, sir," Ayomide replied, his voice calm. "You've done well so far," his father said, nodding. "Don't lose focus now. You have to be ready to take over when the time comes." "Yes, sir," Ayomide said again. He kept his eyes on his food, not letting his thoughts show. At the other end of the table, the younger son, Damilare, sat slouched in his chair. He was different from Ayomide in every way, more relaxed, more cheerful, and less interested in following rules. Instead of medical books, he had a sketch pad in front of him. It was filled with drawings he had made, superheroes, places he wanted to visit, and sometimes funny pictures of people he knew. "Damilare," Dr. Adekunle's voice broke into his thoughts. "What about you? What are you doing today?" Damilare sat up quickly. "I'm working on something for school," he said, closing his sketchpad. His father frowned. "Working on what exactly? You need to start thinking about what you want to do with your life. You're not a child anymore." "Yes, sir," Damilare mumbled, but he didn't mean it. He looked down at his plate, avoiding his father's eyes. The room went quiet again until their mother, Funke, came in with a tray of eggs and sausages. She smiled as she set the food on the table. "Tunde, let them eat," she said softly. "You don't need to push them so hard all the time." Dr. Adekunle didn't argue, but his face showed that he wasn't happy. Ayomide went back to his books, scribbling notes as he ate. Damilare, on the other hand, was only half listening. His mind drifted to his drawings, the one thing that made him feel happy. Even though they sat at the same table, it was clear the two brothers were on very different paths. Ayomide was following the plan set out for him, but Damilare wasn't sure if he even wanted to. He loved art, but his father never saw it as important. What none of them knew was that life had a way of changing things. Both brothers would soon face choices that would test their bond as a family and force them to decide who they really wanted to be. Ayomide spent most of his time buried in his books. Medical school was hard, but he worked tirelessly because he knew what was expected of him. He wanted to make his father proud and ensure he was ready to take over the family's clinic. At school, his teachers admired his dedication, and his classmates often came to him for advice. But deep down, Ayomide felt the weight of it all. He didn't have much time for friends or hobbies, just studying, exams, and more studying. Damilare, on the other hand, was a completely different story. While Ayomide's days were filled with anatomy charts and lab coats, Damilare's days were filled with sketches, design projects, and late-night brainstorming sessions. He had always loved drawing, but it wasn't until high school that he discovered architecture. A teacher had assigned the class a project to design their dream home, and Damilare's work stood out. His drawings weren't just beautiful, they were detailed and creative. At first, Damilare was excited to share his dream with his family, but his father wasn't impressed. Architecture, Dr. Adekunle had said, his brows furrowed. How is that going to secure your future? Buildings can collapse, but medicine will always be needed. Damilare had tried to argue. Architecture is more than just buildings, Dad. It's about creating spaces where people can live, work, and grow. It's important too. But his father wouldn't budge. If you want to waste your time on drawings, that's your choice, he said. But don't expect me to support it. Despite his father's lack of encouragement, Damilare pushed forward. He got into one of the best universities for architecture in the country and thrived. While Ayomide memorized medical terms, Damilare was designing skyscrapers and learning about sustainable materials. His professors praised his creativity and determination, and he started to believe that maybe he could turn his passion into a career. The years passed, and soon the brothers graduated. Ayomide became a doctor and joined their father at the clinic. He quickly learned how demanding the job was: long hours, endless paperwork, and the pressure to make life or death decisions. But he carried on, knowing he was fulfilling his father's dream. Damilare, on the other hand, got his first job at a small architecture firm. He wasn't earning much at first, but he loved his work. Every new project felt like a chance to make his mark on the world. Even though his father didn't show it, Damilare knew his mother was proud of him. She would often ask to see his designs and encourage him to keep going. One evening, as Ayomide and Damilare sat in the living room, their mother brought out a tray of snacks. "How's the clinic, Ayomide?" she asked. "Busy," Ayomide replied with a tired smile. "It's a lot to handle, but Dad's been guiding me through it." "And you, Damilare, how's work?" she asked, turning to her younger son. "It's great, Mama," Damilare said. "We're working on a new housing project in Abuja. It's going to be one of the biggest in the area." "That's wonderful," Funk said, her face lighting up. "Both of you are doing so well. I'm so proud of my boys." Their father, who had been reading the newspaper, glanced up but said nothing. Damilare noticed, but he tried not to let it bother him. As time went on, Ayomide took on more responsibilities at the clinic. Dr. Adekunle began stepping back, letting Ayomide make decisions. The staff respected him, and patients trusted him. But Ayomide often wondered if this was truly the life he wanted. His father's shadows loomed over every choice he made, and the pressure to live up to his legacy never left him. Meanwhile, Damilare's career took off. His designs gained attention, and he was promoted to lead architect at his firm. His projects were featured in magazines, and people began to recognize his talent. Yet, no matter how much success he achieved, he couldn't shake the feeling that his father still saw him as a disappointment. One day, the family gathered to celebrate Ayomide officially taking over the clinic. The event was held at a banquet hall with friends, family, and staff in attendance. Dr. Adekunle gave a speech praising Ayomide for his hard work and dedication. "I am proud to hand over the clinic to my son," he said, his voice firm. "Ayomide has proven himself worthy of continuing the legacy I've built." Everyone applauded, but Damilare couldn't help feeling invisible. His achievements were never celebrated like this, and he wondered if he would ever get the same recognition from his father. The night ended with smiles and laughter, but both brothers carried their own silent struggles. Ayomide wrestled with the weight of running the clinic, while Damilare questioned whether his father would ever see the value in his work. Life seemed to settle into a routine, but little did they know the challenges ahead would test their bond and force them to confront the expectations that had shaped their lives. As the years went by, the Adekunle brothers settled into their careers. Ayomide ran the family clinic with skill and dedication, while Damilare continued to rise in the world of architecture. Despite their successes, the tension between Damilare and their father, Dr. Adekunle, lingered. Damilare always felt his father viewed his career as second-rate, no matter how many awards he won or how many prestigious projects he completed. Their interactions were cordial, but there was an unspoken gap between them. Dr. Adekunle rarely asked about Damilare's work, and when he did, it felt more out of obligation than genuine interest. Ayomide, on the other hand, had his father's full attention. Dr. Adekunle often visited the clinic, offering advice and guidance. While Ayomide appreciated the support, he sometimes felt suffocated by his father's presence, as if he could never truly step out of his shadow. Both brothers eventually married. Ayomide's wife, Tolani, was a sharp and ambitious woman who had studied business management. She had strong opinions and wasn't afraid to voice them. Damilare married Bisi, a warm and supportive architect he had met during a collaborative project. Bisi encouraged Damilare to keep chasing his dreams, even when he felt undervalued by his father. When Dr. Adekunle began drafting his retirement plans, he decided to split the company shares between his sons. He believed this would maintain balance in the family while ensuring the clinic stayed under Ayomide's leadership. After much thought, he decided to give 60% of the shares to Ayomide and 40% to Damilare. At a family meeting, he presented his decision. "This clinic is my life's work," Dr. Adekunle said, addressing his sons. "Ayomide, you've worked hard to run it, and I trust you'll continue to uphold its values. That's why you'll have the majority share. Damilare, you've carved your own path, and I respect that. I want you to still have a stake in the family business, so I am giving you 40%. Damilare accepted the decision without complaint. He had long since come to terms with his father's views, and while the 40% didn't feel significant, it was more than he had expected. Tolani, however, was not pleased. That evening, after the meeting, she confronted Ayomide. "How can your father do this to you?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You've dedicated your entire life to this clinic. You've earned every bit of it, and yet he's giving Damilare 40%. For what? He doesn't even work here." "It's his decision," Ayomide said quietly. "I don't want to start a fight over it." "But it's unfair," Tolani argued. "You're the one running the clinic, dealing with all the stress and responsibility. How can he treat you like this?" Ayomide tried to calm her down, but Tolani's frustration only grew. Over the next few weeks, she kept bringing it up, urging Ayomide to confront his father and demand full ownership. "You deserve it, Ayomide," she insisted. "If you don't stand up for yourself, he'll never respect you as the leader of this family." Under pressure from his wife, Ayomide eventually went to see his father. He hesitated as he sat in his father's study, unsure of how to begin. "Dad," he started, "I wanted to talk about the shares. I've been thinking, maybe it would make more sense for me to have full control of the clinic." Dr. Adekunle's expression hardened. "Ayomide, this is not just about you. This is a family business. Damilare deserves a stake, even if he's not involved in the day-to-day operations. My decision is final." Ayomide nodded, swallowing his frustration. He returned home and told Tolani what had happened. She was livid. "If he doesn't see your worth, maybe you shouldn't be running his clinic," she said. Tolani's words planted a seed of doubt in Ayomide's mind. Over time, he began to resent the pressure of managing the clinic, feeling as though his efforts were never truly appreciated. Eventually, he made a bold decision. He resigned from his position as head of the clinic. "I can't do this anymore," he told his father. "It's time for me to build something of my own." Dr. Adekunle was shocked, but respected Ayomide's choice. Ayomide and Tolani moved to a different city where they opened a private practice together. The transition wasn't easy, but Ayomide finally felt a sense of freedom. Ayomide's new clinic in Lagos started off with a sense of optimism and determination. He and Tolani poured all their savings into it, renting an expensive office space in an upscale area and hiring a small staff to help run operations. At first, things seemed to go well. Tolani's business acumen attracted wealthy clients, and Ayomide's reputation as a skilled doctor brought patients through the door. But over time, cracks began to show. The initial rush of patients slowed, and running a private practice turned out to be more demanding than Ayomide had anticipated. Managing finances, negotiating with suppliers, and dealing with endless bureaucracy left him drained. Tolani, who had been so supportive at the start, began spending extravagantly to maintain the image of success. "You need to advertise more," she insisted one evening after another disappointing day. "We need to show people that this is the best clinic in Lagos. Appearances matter, Ayomide." But the clinic's income couldn't keep up with her spending. Ayomide tried to rein in their expenses, but Tolani dismissed his concerns. "You're being too cautious," she said. "You have to take risks if you want to grow." Months turned into years, and the clinic struggled to stay afloat. Debts piled up as loans were taken to cover rent and salaries. Ayomide's stress began to affect his work, and soon patients started leaving for other clinics. Then came the final blow. A wealthy investor who had initially promised to partner with the clinic backed out at the last moment. With no financial cushion left, Ayomide was forced to let go of his staff and eventually shut down the clinic entirely. Tolani, unable to bear the humiliation of their failure, grew distant. One evening, after yet another argument, she packed her bags. "I can't do this anymore, Ayomide," she said, tears in her eyes. "You've failed us." She left, taking their 2 children with her. Ayomide was devastated. For the first time in his life, he was truly alone. After months of struggling to find work and living off what little savings he had left, Ayomide made the difficult decision to return to his hometown. He swallowed his pride and boarded a bus back to the place he had once called home, unsure of how he would be received. When he arrived, the family clinic was just as bustling as he remembered. Through the window, he saw his brother Damilare giving instructions to the staff. The clinic had grown even more successful in his absence. Damilare's architectural innovations had expanded the space and new equipment filled the halls. Gathering his courage, Ayomide stepped inside. The staff stopped and stared, recognizing him instantly. Whispers spread through the room as Damilare turned and froze. "What are you doing here?" Damilare asked, his tone cautious. Ayomide lowered his head. "I've made mistakes," he said. "I left because I thought I could do better on my own, but I was wrong. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I have nowhere else to go." Before Damilare could respond, their father entered the room. Though older and more frail, Dr. Adekunle's presence still commanded respect. "Ayomide," he said, his voice steady, "you've come home." Tears welled up in Ayomide's eyes. "I'm sorry, Baba. I let pride get in the way. I didn't appreciate what I had." Dr. Adekunle embraced his son. "You've made your mistakes, but what matters is that you've learned from them. Welcome back, my son." Ayomide's return was not without challenges. His father and Damilare agreed to let him rejoin the clinic, but he had to start at the bottom. Ayomide didn't complain. He took on the most menial tasks, from organizing patient records to cleaning examination rooms. At first, the staff viewed him with skepticism, but over time they began to see his humility and dedication. Ayomide worked tirelessly, often staying late to help with patients or improve clinic operations. Damilare, initially wary, started to soften as he saw the change in his brother. One evening, he approached Ayomide as they were locking up the clinic. "You've worked hard these past months," Damilare said. "I can see you've changed." "I have," Ayomide replied, "and I owe you an apology, Damilare. I let my ego and Tolani's ambitions cloud my judgment. I should have appreciated you on the work you've done for this family." Damilare smiled. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them. Welcome back, Ayomide." As the years went on, Ayomide and Damilare worked together to transform the clinic into one of the most renowned medical centers in the region. Ayomide's expertise in medicine and Damilare's innovative designs complemented each other perfectly. Dr. Adekunle eventually retired, leaving the clinic in the hands of his two sons. Despite their rocky past, Ayomide and Damilare formed a strong partnership, united by their shared love for their family and their work. Ayomide's journey had been a difficult one, but it taught him the value of humility, family, and forgiveness. Though he had strayed far, he had found his way back, stronger and wiser than before. In the end, the Adekunle Family Clinic stood as a testament to resilience and unity, a legacy built not by one man, but by the combined efforts of a family that had weathered life's storms together.